The government of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu prepared a protracted battle in the battered Gaza Strip to crush the capabilities of the Islamist militant group Hamas. The ongoing conflict exacted a bloody toll, with the Palestinian death count which totaled Israel's 2008 to 2009 bombing campaign and ground offensive in Gaza, which led to the deaths of at least 1,383 Palestinians over 3 weeks. Netanyahu wanted to wholly demilitarize the Palestinian enclave, beginning with the network of tunnels that allowed Hamas's fighters to infiltrate into Israeli territory. But Hamas, a dogged outfit that thrives in wartime, is digging in its heels. Netanyahu's threats do not frighten Hamas or the Palestinian people. The current fighting, a clash between Israel's vastly superior armed forces and Hamas's insurgents, obscures the greater challenges facing Israelis and Palestinians, including the thorny question of how to accord equal rights to millions of Palestinians living under occupation in the event that a separate Palestinian state turns out not to be viable. It also obscures Hamas's curious history. To a greater degree, the Islamist organization whose militant wing has rained rockets on Israel has the Jewish state to thank for its existence. Hamas was launched in 1988 in Gaza at the time of the First Intifada with a charter now infamous for its anti-Semitism and its refusal to accept the existence of the Israeli state. But for more than a decade prior, Israeli authorities actively enabled its rise. At the time, Israel's main enemy was the late Yasser Arafat's Fatah Party, which formed the heart of the Palestinian Liberation Organization, PLO. Fatah was secular and cast in the mold of other revolutionary leftist guerrilla movements waging insurgencies elsewhere in the world during the Cold War. The PLO carried out assassinations and kidnappings and, although recognized by neighboring Arab states, was considered a terrorist organization by Israel. PLO operatives in the occupied territories faced brutal repression at the hands of the Israeli security state. Meanwhile, the activities of Islamists affiliated with Egypt's banned Muslim Brotherhood were allowed in the open in Gaza, a radical departure from when the secular nationalist Egyptian government of Gamal Abdel Nasser administered the Strip. Egypt lost control of Gaza to Israel after the 1967 Arab-Israeli War, which saw Israel also seize the West Bank. In 1966, Nasser had executed Sayyid Qutb, one of the Brotherhood's leading intellectuals. The Israelis saw Qutb's adherents in the Palestinian territories, including the wheelchair-bound Sheikh Ahmed Yassin, as a useful counterweight to Arafat's PLO. When I look back at the chain of events, I think we made a mistake, an Israeli official who had worked in Gaza in the 1980s said in a 2009 interview with the Wall Street Journal's Andrew Higgins. But at the time, nobody thought about the possible results. Yassin's Mujama became Hamas, which was Israel's Taliban, an Islamist group whose antecedents had been laid down by the West in a battle against a leftist enemy. Israel jailed Yassin in 1984 on a 12-year sentence after the discovery of hidden arms caches, but he was released a year later. Eventually, the tables turned. After the 1993 Oslo Accords, Israel's formal recognition of the PLO, and the start of what we now know as the peace process, Hamas was Israelis' bête noire. Hamas refused to accept Israel or renounce violence. It became perhaps the leading institution of Palestinian resistance to Israeli occupation, which, far beyond religious ideology, is the main reason for its continued popularity among Palestinians. Yassin was killed in an Israeli airstrike in 2004. In 2007, after a legitimate Hamas election victory that rankled both the West and Fatah, the Islamist group took over Gaza, a move that led to strict Israeli blockades and the grinding cycle of conflict that is once more repeating itself. Israel controls the airspace over Gaza and its shoreline and restricts who and what goods are allowed in and out through its border crossings. Similarly, Egypt controls who passes in and out through its border with Gaza. The West Bank and Gaza, which are known as the Palestinian territories, as well as East Jerusalem and Israel, all formed part of land known as Palestine since Roman times. These were also the lands of Jewish kingdoms in the Bible, and are seen by Jews as their ancient homeland. Israel was declared a state in 1948, though the land is still referred to as Palestine by those who do not recognize Israel's right to exist. Palestinians also use the name Palestine as an umbrella term for the West Bank, Gaza, and East Jerusalem. The Gaza Strip is one of the two main territories, along with the much larger West Bank, which make up the Palestinian territories. A small strip of land along the Mediterranean coast, it is only 41 kilometers long and between 6 and 12 kilometers wide, but is home to more than 2.3 million people, making it one of the most densely populated places in the world. During World War II, when it was under British control, the territory had an Arab majority and a Jewish minority. After the war, with persecuted Jewish people leaving Europe looking for a safe place to live, the United Nations agreed that what had been known as Mandatory Palestine would be divided into a Jewish state named Israel and an Arab state named Palestine. In the war that followed, some 700,000 Palestinians, half the Arab population of what was British-ruled Palestine, were driven from their homes, ending up in Jordan, Lebanon, and Syria, as well as in Gaza, the West Bank, and East Jerusalem. About half of registered Palestine refugees remain stateless, many living in crowded camps. Palestinians have long demanded that refugees should be allowed to return, along with millions of their descendants. Israel says any resettlement of Palestinian refugees must occur outside of its borders, even though Israel's claim to the eastern part of Jerusalem is not recognized internationally. Most countries deem Jewish settlements built on land Israel occupied in 1967 as illegal. Israel disputes this and cites historical and biblical ties to the land. Thanks for watching, and please don't forget to subscribe for more videos.